business owner or a manager, you have had to at some point said to yourself, why can't my staff just get their jobs done? I know I have. I know that I talk to these guys weekly, and I know that they have. And so the good news is, if you're questioning yourself and the productivity of your staff and your employees, you're not dissimilar from anyone else in business. So take solace in knowing that. But having productivity problems in your business really hurts. It hurts on many fronts. I mean, to say the least, your customers, your team, and ultimately it can hurt your bottom line. So today on the Reboot, what we're going to do, we've got the crew and we've got some ideas and some thoughts that we've used in the past to head off productivity problems with our team. And we're going to give those to you too today. Well, first, thanks for joining the Reboot. I'm Jim Gaff, and this is the Reboot crew. We're focused on your roadblocks that your business faces every day and every week, because we all have them, and to help you evaluate and reevaluate those roadblocks and potential solutions for them. But again, first, I'm Jim Gast with SpliceNet Cincinnati, and that guy is?
Hey, I'm Dave Groot with Windstar Technologies in Culpeper, Virginia.
Brian Bradley, B&L PC Solutions on Long Island in New York.
And David Luft with LDD Consulting in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
I'm Ryan Heisler, Computeries, or in St. Louis and Chicago.
Guys, I got to tell you, Adam and I talked about this topic together, and he was really, really excited about it, to say the least. I think, Dave, your comment was maybe he should have a little bit of passion, right?
Exactly.
You know, very passionate about this. He was having a rough day with his staff that day. And look, my staff are really mad at me today because I messed up, right? I'm not productive all the time. None of us are, right, guys? We're not uber productive all the time. Can't be. But for our teams, we're responsible for what they do, right? We're responsible for serving our customers. We're responsible for delivering a product or a service to our customers. And so it's my opinion that we need metrics in place, something to measure that, to keep that productivity where it needs to be, at its highest possible. And so I'll start off by talking about what we use. When I'm looking at productivity, I think it starts with hiring, okay? I want to see somebody that's organized. I love your head shaking, Ryan. I want to see somebody that's organized. I want to see a resume that's, got some structure to it, got some flow to it, that tells the right story. So that's where I start, is in that process. You guys?
That was actually probably my number one comment, was that employee productivity probably starts, or is most importantly judged, before they even start working for you, right? Yeah. If you can't sort of nail it in that interview process, then you're not going to be the right person. So I think it starts there.
I mean, what elements are you looking for when you're interviewing somebody? Is it when you talk to them? Is it the resume? I know some of you guys use tests and stuff like that and questionnaires for or interview processes that are online and stuff. Do you look for thoroughness in that? What are some of the elements, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I'm from the moment that I post that position, if I'm posting it somewhere, that's like test one, right? So I always post something in the description that says, do this, right? Tell me your favorite restaurant, or do this assessment, right? And if you don't do these, whatever it is, it's really a simple ask. If you don't do these things, then we won't even consider you, and we won't, because honestly, if you can't follow that simple direction, then we're gonna have problems as soon as you start working with us. Right. So it's like from the very first moment, that's what I'm looking for, is someone who can follow directions. Because if you can follow directions and follow up, then you're more likely to be the person that's going to be productive on your own without somebody having to like sit over your shoulder and babysit you.
Yeah. Yep. Anyone else on that want to add to it?
I've got some questions too that I ask people, and just to see how motivated. One of them I like is, what did you spend money on growing up? And then they'll say something, and that has nothing to do with the question. But then, so how did you get that money? That's the question. So were they motivated to work, or did they just, whatever they happened to get? I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
I like that question so much, I actually stole it from David, and I use that one all the time now.
Yeah, we actually, and everybody that's watching Reboot, I mean, the secret here is 3 or 4 of us were involved in a group interview for this kid this week, right? And that question actually came up, Dave Love. That was it caught me from left field. Actually, I thought it was a really good question that I'm going to use. What about job description, guys? Do you think that I think it's important if you want somebody to be productive, they need to know what they're supposed to do, right? And so, how are your job descriptions? Somebody want to talk about? Somebody here have a really good, like our job descriptions are like 4 pages long or something. That kind of thing.
I think without the metrics that Ryan uses to test people, no one really reads. You can put in there what the expectations of the jobs are, what your roles are, responsibilities, even talk about scorecards in an interview. But, I find that a lot of that stuff just kind of, it's a lot of people don't read it for whatever reason. And that's a challenge.
It's kind of shocking how many people you talk to that don't seem to know what the job is about. Right, when it was described accurately,
exactly, yeah.
They're responding to, and then they kind of seem like they don't know, or that's not the thing that they were looking for, or just completely off base with what they can or want to do. So it proves to me that most people aren't reading them, and that's why I put those questions in there, because it tells me A, if they're reading it, and B, if they're paying attention and can follow a simple direction.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a little off topic, but you guys remember the old Van Halen M&M clause in their contracts? You guys don't remember this? Great story, right? So Van Halen said they wanted no whatever it was, green M&Ms in their green room, right? No green M&Ms.
Oh, for their writer or whatever.
Yeah, it was in their contract, right? And so nobody really understood what it was. David Lee Roth came out a couple of years ago with a long video, great video. I'll send it to you guys. I'll link it to this recording for everyone. And the reason it was is because first off, they wanted to make sure that the venue was reading the contract. And so if they walked in and there were green M&Ms, it told them that they didn't read the contract. Somebody didn't read the contract and enforce it. Really, the reason they cared about it was because, the important stuff in there, like, hey, we need a stage that can hold this much weight, per square foot or whatever it was. We need this much. We need this type of electric. And they know that if they didn't read that green M&M clause, they probably didn't read any of that other stuff too. And they called off shows because of it, right? And so, maybe we should all be, here's an off-the-cuff thought. Maybe we should all be putting green M&M clauses in our job description. And during the interview, what do you think about that green M&M question?
Well, I mean, sometimes we do. It's as simple as you need to complete an Indeed assessment, and they don't do it anyway.
Yeah, right.
One I like is just to ask them, what do you know about our company? And you could tell if they know anything, because my company doesn't come off as a MSP. They're like, oh, well, you guys do consulting. And what I really prefer people that are honest with me and say, I don't really know much about your company, versus the ones that just kind of wing it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if they didn't look at my website, it tells me, you can immediately tell whether they've read about you, looked at LinkedIn or whatever, right? And if they don't, if they're honest about it, okay, cool. Let's move on. Let's see what else. But if they don't answer that question, with some sincerity, you're right, guys. They're not clear. They're not being productive. They're not going to be productive. What about metrics, guys? After we tell them what they're supposed to do you guys measure your team?
We do.
How do you do that, Brian? What do you guys use?
Well, we part of our challenge was, finding a tool to use. And I had started with BrightGauge a while ago, and I, loved the metrics that it was able to give. I didn't have I wasn't getting the productivity out of the staff to give me the metrics I wanted. So I canceled the product. I'm like, so we've simplified it now. So we're taking surveys after each support ticket through Crewho, and we're letting the clients let us know how we did, and then to kind of boost productivity. There's some internal challenges, rewards, who's going to get the most, whoever gets the most, awesome ratings this week gets a $50 gift card or something, you know what I mean? So, gift certificate for lunch, just to kind of keep them engaged and make sure that the tickets are open timely, closed timely, because that was a big thing too. Maybe the work was getting done, but I'm not seeing it until a week or two later that ticket's closed, and it just screws everything up. So that's what we just started with that about a month ago, and it's been great so far.
Anybody else using anything?
We started using a scorecard, and one thing I found was that you have to have things that they are really able to control. If it's a vague thing that whatever they do has no direct impact on that, it's not helpful, even if it's important to the business. So it has to be something that when they make a change, it directly impacts that scorecard number.
Mm-hmm. I work with a lot of law firms, and the one thing that most law firms really don't have a good grasp on, like we do, and everybody that's on the Reboot, we have MSP businesses. We're managed service providers that do some level or some type of outsourced IT supports or projects or whatever. And so we use tickets in our businesses, right? So I don't have law firms that are using tickets, if you will, or real good, great task management where you have an oversight and you're seeing, did somebody hit the goal? Did they go over the goal when they completed that task? I'm sure that they're out there for businesses, and if they're not, we got to make a lot of money by developing one, guys. But you know of any business type that you guys work with that's really good at managing their what they have to do? Maybe a manufacturer, for example. No.
Actually, there's one dentist that we work with that they have a great scoreboard in their lounge, and it's things like, how many referral customers did we get? How many? So they've got a bunch of things that you can see directly impact them, and it's a nice big board they put up in there.
Our scoreboards are front and center in our business, and we're measuring things like customer response. How quickly did we respond to a customer, right? And we trend that number. So we want to see it, always trending at a certain level within an hour is always our goal, right? And it depends what the priority of the issue is. But if it starts to trend, up, we start to look at, and then we drill down and say, okay, well, who's being less productive at responding, right? And we use Breakage. By the way, what was that product called, Brian? Not Breakage, but the other one you mentioned?
Crew.
That's not specific to
MSP? It is.
It is. Well, you know what? Go ahead and put it in the chat so people can research a little bit. Sure. And if you guys have got some other things, put it in the chat so other people can see this later on. But I think it's important to monitor. You mentioned scorecards, right? And so, what kind of things do you look for on a scorecard?
We just look at backups that have failed more than 2 days.
Yeah.
And things that are just critical to our business, antiviruses that are out of date, things like that. Just things that are really important to me that I don't want to have to make an excuse to my customer. Like Brian was just mentioning, he had a customer had a server crash, and he was able to get them up and running in 30 minutes because his backups were working.
Yeah.
And I've picked up a number of clients because MSPs were not backing their stuff up, even though they were charging them for it.
And the times like that, to tag on what I said earlier about getting customer responses from tickets. I mean, you something like that. The guy's down hard, and again, separately doesn't have a contract. That's a different issue. But he had our backup solution. He's down hard. He's got 7 people that can't do any work. Calls us up. He's up in 30 minutes. You don't think my marketing girl is going to hit him up for a review of how we're doing and write us a Google review? I mean, that's and that's you got to feed off of that, and just and something else we can measure is our inbound phone calls, right? Everything now is VoIP, and you can kind of look at those metrics and see, at least with Citricom, you can look and see who's picking up these calls. Maybe why is this extension, this person getting it's a 5-to-1 ratio. I mean, you guys got to step up because they all ring in a pool. Share that a little bit, and if you don't, maybe there's a lack of knowledge somewhere or something. So is there more training needed? Is there a fear of talking? Try to find those things out. But something like your phone system can show you who's the most active in that regard. Maybe someone else is handling the tickets that come in via over email more than some other metrics.
Yeah, I think that knowing everything is different, and we're talking about our businesses, but I mean, and the things that we do specific for our businesses, but these apply everywhere, right? I don't care if you're a dentist, a CPA, a doctor, so on and so forth, right? If you're a doctor, how long did it take to get that person out of our waiting room and into a room and a doctor in to see that person and then them out the door, right? I mean, those are the types of metrics that we should be looking at. How long did it take to get a nurse in there, get a blood pressure check, a temperature, and, or whatever else you have to measure, or that's the type of stuff that you should be looking at and measuring with your staff, and then setting expectations with them, guys. I think that's the key. we were getting a little out of hand, I thought, and we'd been starting to put in metrics like last early on in 2020, and so when I saw things kind of start to go out of kilter, I reined us all in and I said, hey guys, here's our targets as a group. I said, here's our targets as a group. If we're not hitting these targets as a group, then we're not doing good. We're doing bad. We're going to lose customers. People are going to lose jobs. At the end of the day, if an individual isn't hitting productivity, you can either let it infect the entire business or you can just chop that off.
Yeah, you don't want to compromise, your service for, because you're closing more tickets. You want to keep going up on both.
Yep. I also think that we've got an interesting situation, and I'm not complaining. I mean, like I said, no one's perfect, but you may have somebody that's low productivity but great at their job, right? And then somebody that's high productivity and then just messes up here and there little tiny things, right? And you guys have that situation where you're like, wow, that guy's great, but where's the numbers? Where are the numbers? Well, this guy closes more than anybody else, but we have to do reworks and stuff. So
that was what got me going with Crewwho, because I could say 10 times, and I listen. I was a tech for 20 years. I know what it's like. I know I get pulled in 10 different directions. I'd get it all done very quickly, but it doesn't show when I'm closing tickets a week or two later. So when I you can only say that so many times, right? But now when it comes down to, well, here's what's happening, guys. When you close a ticket, you're going to get you potentially can get an instant response from that client. So if you're closing a ticket from a week and a half ago, they're not going to, number one, they're not going to rate you or review you, and they're going to wonder, why is it taking us this long? I said, so it's ultimately on you now. So believe it or not, ticket closures are where they should be now.
I also share with our team when we have bad news. Hey, so and so's mad at you. You really let them down here. Don't take it personal. And I mean, it's just work, but we need to pick it up over here. At the same time, we share great news. Hey, so-and-so said so-and-so did a great job. And we tell everybody about that, because we should all be always targeting to be as best as we can, So, in some industries, like if you're a trucking company, right, being there to pick something up on time is like the metrics, right? That's like the thing. If you're a manufacturer and getting the ship on time is like the thing. I think if every business has the thing, whatever that thing is, right? If we look at that, I like to take steps back with our customers and help them evaluate it, right? Because I don't just do IT support, I do some business consulting for some of them as well. And I say, okay, in your business, what are your key things that lend to the end result? So, I think it's knowing. The other tip I have is looking at that end game. What is that? And then measuring backwards. What dramatically affects that end result? In our business is it's closing tickets, right? And not having to rework them. So what is that?
And you know what? Closing tickets is kind of a dangerous metric, though, because
I know.
Now they're just closing tickets. I want to know how many of them are reopened.
Or how many of them are
important to me,
right? I have a very tragic example from a couple of days ago. We had to call AT&T about an issue with the clients, and this is like an enterprise internet circuit that we needed to have a change made to. They had a managed router. It took 50 minutes. I think I talked to 12 people, right? So if each one of those people is being measured on how many calls they complete, right? Most of those calls were 20, 30 seconds, right? Because it was me saying, hey, are you the right person? And them saying, no, let me get you the right person. And then sending me to the wrong person again 11 times. So those people all closed a lot of phone calls because of just me. And I would imagine that probably happens, more often than the opposite happens, where somebody just gets one call and they get to the right person.
So if you're measuring 11 people and just keep one.
Yeah. If you're measuring how many calls they take or close, you got a bunch of really short calls that were somebody who's about ready to, explode mentally because they're so angry that they can't just get to the right person that can help them. Then that's, you have to be careful with measuring by like closed tickets or phone calls that you total phone calls. That's why I think Brian's idea with Crew is a little bit better than that, because it's actually measuring the client's feedback. How was the experience?
Right.
You know,
I think that's a really good point on measuring a false goal, right? You know, I mean, it's really not the metric. The metric is close the ticket, make the customer happy, you know, and not have to do it over again, right?
Yeah, yeah. My whole thing is close the tickets, but not necessarily, like you say, ultimately, listen, as MSPs, if we're doing everything, if everything's great and everything's running optimized, I mean, we shouldn't have any tickets, right?
Well, I was going to say, the metric that I go for is less tickets.
Yeah.
Like every time there's a ticket, what can I do to make sure that never happens again?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
but I mean, if you're a dentist or if you're a trucking company or something like that, you know, they're going to measure it differently, obviously.
Sure.
Yeah.
As long as Microsoft makes updates, we are not going to have a stable environment.
Nobody said tickets are going to be gone. You know, I know that's not achievable, but the reality is you can quiet down quite a bit of it if it's done, you know, consistently. If the networks are rolled out consistently, if you have processes and procedures that do everything in the same way. Sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
that's okay. But I just don't, I don't want to try to, I don't want to get too focused on just like,
Sure, right. Yeah.
Because what we do is, we can, the idea is that we should have less, but I mean, if you know, your clients are going to need things, that's why you're in business, right? Maybe it's a project, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's some other request, or maybe, you know, they spilled coffee on their keyboard. You can't prevent that kind of thing. So, you know, that's why I think the measurement of how many tickets did you do is kind of a bad measure. Whereas the client had a request, are they satisfied or not? Did they get responded to, or did it get handled and done in a timely way? And was it right? And is the client happy? That's the big measurement, right? How does the client response, or how's the client's perception of how the whole experience was?
So we're going to go over a couple minutes here, but I think it's worth talking about, if you guys don't mind. What if somebody's off track? What kind of things do you guys do to get somebody back on track?
Mm-hmm. Give them a really, really short leash, and if not, then free up their future.
Free up their phraseology. Free up their future.
I think on track is something that can be measured or looked at. You know, we use Teams for our projects, and we have checklists in there. And if we're doing a migration, it's you know, licensing, it's pre-stage, you know, so everything there is measurable. And if it's somewhere that it should be on to the next phase and it's not, we'll, you know, kind of reach out and say what's the issue, you know. But generally, you know, if things are running right and you have productive people, you know where they are and what's going on and what's missing or what's needed, because they want to be productive. So you know, not everybody is not. It's just keeping them productive is really what
being off track doesn't have to be a result of their effort,
right,
or lack of effort, or whatever. I mean, it could be a result of a process or a business issue that needs to be addressed or looked at as well.
Do you guys have meetings often with your teams as a team or individuals, and you know, touch base meetings with them?
I do.
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't do a lot of one-on-one meetings, but, you know, like we do those daily huddles and the weekly company meeting where everybody's on all of those calls. And then if you're having a problem or stuck on something, you know, everybody's heard about that, what you're doing every day. And so if it's a repetitive problem that, hey, I'm still trying to do this, or I'm having trouble doing that, you know, other people know about it, and I know about it, and I can jump in if need be and say, hey, let's, why don't we try something else? Or, you know, have you tried this? So, yeah. And then a lot of communication too. That goes back to having team players, right? If your team players, if they communicate with each other and try to help each other, if they do get stuck with something, then they can reach out and the others will help them.
Yeah, we have a daily huddle in our company, and there's three things we focus on in the huddle. And it's fast. It's standing. It lasts 15 minutes. For the number of people we have, that's perfect. First, did you get accomplished yesterday your priorities? That's the first thing. Second thing, what are your priorities for today? And third thing, what are any roadblocks that with your priorities or anything else that you're encountering a roadblock? And that's where we can talk about escalating a problem. You know, hey, I'm having a problem doing X, Y, and Z. And these aren't specific to our industry, right? These are just generally good practices with any business.
Well, it could be your bookkeeper, your admin. It could be, you know, it's anybody. It's not trade specific. It's or role specific. It's just in general. And you know, one of the things with my bookkeeper, for example, was, you know what, we're not going to be able to transfer to, QuickBooks from Autotask without doing this or doing this. And that was a roadblock for her that I was, somewhat delayed on. And so we did that, went to QuickBooks Online, which I hate, but that's a whole separate conversation. But, she can now do her job and it's more efficient for her. I see the benefits, but you got to listen and move along and just, get rid of those obstacles.
Well, guys, we went over. I think we kind of hit it from start to finish, really. I mean, it starts with the hiring and setting the expectations.
And with the firing.
I was going to say the same thing. That's so funny.
I don't want to say the worst part. Laugh. I want to save it and build up to it, boys. No, hire right, set the expectation, measure the expectation, and present the results, and ultimately, correct as we go, correct the ship as we go, and take action if that means hire to fire. I think that's what you can do. So those are our tips for handling employee productivity problems. Again, this is Reboot. We are on every Wednesday at 1:30 Eastern time.
Every other Wednesday.
Didn't I say that? Every other Wednesday. Thank you, guys. Every other Wednesday.
Just trying to be motivated and productive.
Yeah. Our next topic is going to be keeping our commitments to our customers. What are some of our hacks to keeping our commitments to our customers? Ofer put a comment out here, guys. Ofer, we'll respond to you offline. We're out of time here, but thanks for that comment, and we'll definitely respond to it. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Great show. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
See ya.